Aloha, and welcome to my channel. This is part 2 of my video series, What is Polynesian Tattoo? In the first video, I spoke briefly about the purpose of Polynesian tattoo and the specific areas of Polynesia where tattoo is most prevalent. I outlined those areas and touched upon the stylistic differences as well as the cultural importance of tattoo in those regions. If you haven't seen the first video, I urge you to do so before watching this one. This one will make much more sense. Please remember that I am going back in time here, several hundred years just prior to Western contact with Polynesia. So when I speak about tattoo, it is in the traditional sense unless I state otherwise. Again, I encourage people to contact me through my website or blog if you would like to add anything to the conversation. This information comes from many sources, and in no way am I trying to say that I know everything about Polynesian tattoo. I'm simply sharing what I have learned from my research as an author and 10 years as a tattoo artist here in Polynesia. Alright, we left off talking about the 5 main areas of Polynesia where tattoo was practiced. Those areas are Hawaii, Tahiti, New Zealand, Samoa, and the Marquesas. It's very important to understand that each of these areas have their own unique style of tattoo, and that if you are designing a tattoo, it's important to know which area you will be drawing your inspiration from. So, let's get down to the general summary of why tattoo is practiced by these cultures. Please note that by no means does this list follow a hierarchy of importance. It's just a list. If you are an artist, this list will help you when you are creating a tattoo for your client that may want something designed for a specific purpose. Because this list is extensive, I'm just going to stick with the key points and not elaborate too much, so that it doesn't become boring. Alright, let's get started. One of the main reasons for the purpose of Polynesian tattoo was to protect, in a physical sense, just like armor. The tattoo being a direct analog for a shell or woven mat that would protect from physical as well as mental harm. This is rooted in the belief that the soul, or the spirit of man, is encapsulated in layers of a shell. Kind of like a turtle shell or a crab shell. It was believed that the outer shell of a man could be washed away at times to reveal a newer and younger shell underneath, similar to being reborn. Another reason for Polynesian tattoo was to protect the wearer from the contagious sacredness that permeated everything in Polynesia. Animals, plants, rocks, people, all of these things contain mana, or sacred energy, that was itself contagious, meaning that the power could be added to or subtracted from depending on one's actions. It was essential to preserve this inherent power as well as to protect oneself from it. Tattoo is also used as protection from the wrath of the gods. Most people in ancient Polynesian society spent much of their lives attempting to appease the gods in one way or another. Doing this ensured a bountiful harvest or brought about good fortune, among other things. But the gods were easily displeased and enjoyed showing their discontent by wreaking havoc on the mortals. So the more tattoo that one displayed was often seen as a higher degree of spiritual or divine favoritism. Another reason for a tattoo was to shield the wearer from those individuals that had lesser social status or power. The idea was to ensure that those with lesser social or cosmological importance did not inadvertently negate the mana possessed by an individual with greater power. This is a good example of how mana could be subtracted from, and is another facet of the aforementioned contagious sacredness. People with lesser amounts of mana could subtract power from those with more simply by touching that person, or something that that person owned. And didn't even have to really be a physical contact. For example, the subtraction could occur if a lesser individual merely stepped into the shadow of a person with greater mana than themselves. Another one of the main reasons behind Polynesian tattoo was to create difference, especially in regards to individual importance. This elaborates further on the concept of who had more mana and who did not. Just like today, those that could afford to got tattooed to show that they were different from those around them. Back then it was more about spiritual or divine connectivity, and the amount of tattoo that one possessed created this difference. In this sense, tattoo was used to signify social and economic status and to establish and reinforce hierarchy. Another reason was to create unity with those who shared similar markings. Warriors had different tattoos than the common class. Warring parties were known to display similar markings to signify their alliance with each other. Feasting parties, or groups of individuals that ate together, used tattoos to identify themselves as these individuals who were part of this party. Artists, priests, craftsmen, and other such people wore tattoo that symbolized their respective position or purpose in society. Another major reason for Polynesian tattoo was to display family history and lineage. This was more or less the basis for much of Polynesian tattoo, and is arguably the reason that tattoo became a living account of one's genealogical history. It transitioned from the permanent structure of the home or dwelling and was instead placed upon the skin. In this way, it was used to show familial unions, marriages, and adoptions. Tattoo is therefore a way to indicate the alignment of families as well as lines of descent. The very structure of the Samoan pea, for example, hinged upon the familial alliances, both past and present. Tattoo is also used as a way to intimidate or to establish dominance. In New Zealand, the moko facial tattoo is a great example of this. One purpose of this type of tattoo was to scare the hell out of the enemy. In Hawaii, there was a chief that had half of his body tattooed solid black because he claimed to be a direct descendant of the god of thunder. This association intimidated anyone that may have wanted to challenge his authority. He also had a special group of warriors that were basically tattooed in a similar fashion as himself, and this reinforced his claim. These warriors, essentially carbon copies of their chief, struck fear into the hearts of their enemies by perpetrating the belief that this chief was a descendant of the thunder god. Tattoo is also used to commemorate personal and familial achievements, being victorious in battle, overcoming adversity, travel, the number of children one sired, the number of wives one had, or almost anything that would convey a personal sense of achievement could be represented in tattoo. So tattoo was a living account of one's personal identity, and that went with him or her wherever they traveled. And because there was a lot of travel going on, either by canoe or by foot, this was a very important thing to have. Tattoo was also used to commemorate rites of passage, to demarcate when a boy became a man and a girl became a woman, or, more pointedly, when a girl was considered sexually available. And finally, tattoo was used to beautify, meaning tattoo was carried out for purely aesthetic reasons. Again, not unlike today. You could say that this was part of the intent overall, combined with the personal details of that person's life. So, those are the main reasons why Polynesian tattoo was practiced. This list is to help artists to better understand the different angles that can be used to approach the design of Polynesian tattoo. Now, if you're someone who is simply interested in the art form, this list can be used to inspire or educate should you be considering Polynesian tattoo. Moving forward, I believe that it is important that we not forget the past, that we understand the reasoning used by our ancestors in regard to creating tattoo. In our haste to create anew, we are in danger of homogenizing this art form. Art by its nature has to evolve. This is a fundamental fact of art and of human nature. But because we are human beings, we feel compelled to create at such a rapid pace, we like to replace the old with the new, we can unwittingly overlook the fundamentals. And because there's a renaissance happening here in Polynesia and other parts of the world where Polynesian tattoo is being practiced, the art form is beginning to take on other characteristics. Again, this is all inevitable, it is entirely healthy, and it is righteous. But this growth needs to be tempered with the proper respect given to the roots, to where and how it all began. And this brings us to the next subject, which is avoiding artistic plagiarism. This is a very volatile topic, not only in regards to Polynesian tattoo, but to tattoo, art, music, whatever your creative outlet might be. The issue of borrowing, taking, or stealing someone else's idea is as old as creative expression itself. So for the most part, plagiarism is unavoidable. If you're an artist, you've likely honed your craft copying the artist that most inspired you. There are popular genres in tattoo today, such as hyperrealism and portraits, that make the artist more of a technician than an outright originator. This is because the methods used to execute such work falls more into the category of copying as opposed to creating. Now, I'm not going to get into the morality of it all, and I'm not going to make any judgments about it because at times I am required to do this too. I mean, I'm a tattoo artist. However, in regards to Polynesian tattoo, the issue of plagiarism is different. What someone may consider an innocent act, taking from books, magazines, the internet, a little something here, a little something there, or just like outrightly copying an entire piece, that can bring trouble for the client and for the artist. Add to that the fact that if you get lazy and you just start repeating yourself with a few symbols that you're familiar with, you're going to become dull. Your artwork's going to become dull, and it will show. The issue of outright pilfering something you see and don't take the time to create yourself is that you can unknowingly steal someone's personal family history. You can step on someone's life story, and then you're going to put that on your client and essentially devalue and disrespect the person that you stole it from, and his or her family and life story. Not to mention that you're going to be putting something on your client that is completely irrelevant to them. So it's just not a good idea to do this. Again, Polynesian tattoo is one of the most complicated tattoo genres to involve yourself with. It requires a lot of attention to detail, and as an artist, it is your responsibility to do the research and learn what the symbols mean before you attempt to do any tattoos. Just remember to be righteous, show respect, and try not to steal, but to create something unique and meaningful. So, that brings this two-part installment, What is Polynesian Tattoo?, to an end. In future videos, I will cover the topics of how to create a Polynesian tattoo and the usage and meanings of symbols both complex and common. In my next video, we will revisit the 5 genres of Polynesian tattoo and go more into the detail about why those specific cultures use tattoo and how they develop their own respective styles. Until then, aloha, and remember to think before you ink.